talks.
All right, hello everyone. This is Josh, also known as Yashu. You're just tuning into episode 94 of the TLOY Talks podcast. You can get this on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Buzzsprout, much more, and all that. Check out the Patreon that we have. Like, you could sign up to become a member, get exclusive perks depending on the tiers and memberships and all that. Whatever's best for you, definitely tap that in. And I'm just gonna get it started right here. So he's a comedian from Guyana, but is residing in Toronto right now. Has done a lot of stuff with Zoo Fest, with Amazon Prime, with Just for Laughs and all that. He's been on many podcasts with Damaged Goods and much more. Has done a lot of good, great comedy stand up events all over the city of Toronto, in England, also in Montreal as well too. And something a little bit different today and all that. So we have Clif Knight on the podcast. How are you doing today, man?
I'm really good, man. Really glad that today is a much drier day than it was yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm an Aquarius, but even I can't handle that much water. Did you look outside and see what happened?
Yeah, it was kind of wicked too. I know out west it was kind of messed up from there and all that. People had their floods and all that. I don't know if you saw the Drake post where the water,
his
it's
whole house is on the water, and I saw in the comments somebody is this is just one more L for Drake. I think that's what it was. To be honest, the Bay came here. But yeah, no, I'm doing okay. I'm taking a little bit of a break, but there's always something happening.
True.
How are you?
I've been all right too. I mean, past couple days just been busy and all that, just gearing up with content, gearing up with other stuff and all that too, and trying some different stuff today. I know just today, I've tried this place called Mayday Burger and all that, which is a food spot by Young and Dundas. They do smash burgers and all that too, and I gotta say, it's actually pretty decent burgers and all that. They had these loaded fries where they have jalapenos and cheese drizzle and beef and all that. That was actually pretty decent.
Insane. My standard for fries is pretty high in this city. Not a lot of places know how to make good fries, so I probably check that out. One of my favorite places for fries, but for food in general, Aussies down in Kensington. Their lamb burger and their chicken sandwich. Where a lot of people go crazy for the Popeyes chicken sandwich, Chick-fil-A. Nah, bro. Go to Kensington Market. I don't even know what street it's on. Just use your nose and smell it out. You'll figure it out.
Yeah. I remember at one point too, I think back in 2019 that they tried to 2018, 2019, they tried to boycott not Popeyes, Chick-fil-A when they came to Toronto too because of their views and all that. And I mean, Chick-fil-A is still here now and all that.
Yeah, it's here. I mean, I feel that's way more evidence of homophobes be hungry, for one. I don't know. For two, I had Chick-fil-A in the States before the controversy, before I knew anything about it, and it was amazing. And then people who've had it in both places, they're yeah, Toronto Chick-fil-A is trash. So it's all right, let's just not do that then.
Actually, I think a good spot for chicken nowadays too. I don't know if you had Chica's or PG Clucks and all that. I heard they had some good spots.
Chica's is good. Is actually too spicy for me. The last time I went there, PG Clucks is definitely you're on your way home from the club type thing. Another place that is kind of out of the way, Cluck Clucks. If you're a chicken and waffles type person, that's down on the Esplanade. That one's pretty sick.
True, yeah. I mean, Knockout Chicken too. I think Knockout Chicken kind of slaps all of them and all that too. I think they just had crazy selections and all that.
Knockout Chicken be giving you deals. It's the chicken kind of watery, but it's but it's nice.
Yeah. We'll definitely talk more about food in a bit and all that too. But yeah, I usually want to get people started to get to know people a little bit more and all that for the audience and everyone else too. So growing up in Guyana, what was the environment for you growing up? I know you talked about power outages and all that type of stuff and all that too, but would you say it was a good experience or would it be different?
I mean, yeah, it was definitely different from Canada. I grew up in Georgetown, the city in Guyana. I think I had a typical city life. I had a bike, it was stolen twice, but I got pretty lucky. My mom was a teacher and she worked at this private school, so I was able to go to a private school, and then I got a scholarship for being so smart. the environment in Guyana is pretty easy to like just have your life, just like vibe it out, whatever. Especially if you're not born in like the back dam or whatever. If you're a rice farmer, you're a rice farmer, live your life. But I guess, yeah, I happen to have lived in the city, got a pretty good education. I had a good time. Go out to the bush every once in a while and stuff like that. And then coming to Canada, it was like definitely in its own way overwhelming. I was about to not come. I was about to, because like my mom came here and she's like, "Do you want to come and do school or whatever?" And at the time, I was in university. I had a good job, had a girlfriend, wasn't paying much rent. Like my life was fine. I was like, why am I going to Canada? And then I'm looking at Alberta temperatures, and I'm like, I don't want to deal with anything minus 40. Sounds like a disease. And then I decided, I was like, screw it. If I come and I don't like it, I'm gonna just go back. And I came, and it turned out to be like a much better life for me. So it
Was
worked
that
out.
like kind of like your first introduction to like seeing snow and all that, like when you came to Canada and all that, or?
Yeah. I very much had that. We used to talk about this where it's like almost every Caribbean person comes here and we think a snowman's gonna be easy. You think you can just build a snowman. You think you know
Yeah.
what they're doing, and no, you need an architecture degree and freeze proof hands. So I was like, yeah, was not my first Christmas, but definitely my second Christmas. I was at my aunt's place. She has this huge front yard. I'm like, I'm gonna build a snowman, and it was the worst thing I could try to do. I gave up after like 35 minutes. I was like, no,
Yeah.
this is not worth it.
Yeah, because I know with like Caribbean people and like African people, because I'm like Ethiopian by the way too. Like we're not really as like crazy about like snow and winter and all that too, because of like how like the temperatures kind of like affect our systems. Like we're more into
Yeah.
like heat and all that. But like because like I was like born here and all that too. Like I kind of had like a very great introduction to like snow like when I was like born here, because it was like kind of like what you would see like on TV and all that too, because like that whole like white Christmas, that white feeling, like it's just
Yeah.
like joy and all that, you
You
know.
try to do some of that TV shit, and then it's like, nah, bro, you're not really running out in the snow on Christmas morning. You're not really gonna go snowboarding with your friend. I mean, I went skiing one time, and sure, it was great, but it was expensive, and now you understand a lot of the stereotypes in media about, oh yeah, you're going skiing, and it's like, yeah, that's right, because it costs $500 a day to do
Yeah.
on something that you're making no money off of. I was a huge fan of Shaun White. He's a Canadian snowboarder. If I recall, 2 gold medals in the 2000 Winter Olympics, something like that. And I was like, yeah, go to Canada, it'd be so sick. And then you like ski for 20 minutes, and it's like, oh no, actually, I don't feel like breaking that many bones.
Nah, I know what you mean. Like I remembered, like I don't know if you watched like the movie like Cool Runnings before and all that.
Yeah.
I remembered like because like they had like these like people from like the Caribbean. They moved them. It's like somewhere like in Canada and all that to participate like in the tobogganing like games or like
It was the 1988 Calgary Olympics, I believe, is what it is.
Yeah.
John Candy, and I can't remember who the other actor is, but like, yeah, they bring these guys, the Jamaican bobsled team, and apparently it's based on a real story. But they also didn't win, and I don't feel they did it again. I don't think I wouldn't do it again.
But like I think that was like the most like when they were like so happy to see snow and everything like that too, because it's kind of like the
Yeah.
different environment that they see and all that. I mean, even like Leon was like in the movie, Malik Yoba,
There
who's
you
like
go, yeah.
New York Undercover and all that, and yeah, I mean,
It has this mythos of like civilization is where snow shows up. So it's just like this median ground of like, yeah, New York, it's gonna snow, it's for Christmas, or you know what I mean? You gotta have some level of adversity to overcome, and that comes in the way of frozen water. And now you, this Caribbean person, you're used to 30-degree weather every day. I think that the lowest it ever got while I was a kid was like down to 26, and that was like me dying. And then I show up here, and they're like, "Yeah, it's gonna go minus 25, no big deal." like, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah, for sure. Have you ever tried tobogganing in like Christie Pits or like Witchwood and all that too? Because I think that's kind of like the goal and like trying to like have like the whole like free like sledding moment and all that.
I wanted to. I never got a chance to. Maybe this Christmas.
Yeah,
Maybe
this Christmas.
somebody, please, whoever, Canadian Tire, please sponsor me so that I can take 2 days off work and just go tobogganing. And then also, please sponsor the chiropractic session I'm going to need afterwards. Yes, please.
Nah, sure, man. And getting back onto like topic for a bit too, like what was like your first introduction to comedy and all that?
It's so weird. My first introduction to comedy, very, very first, is from a Trini Vincentian artist called Paul Keynes Douglas. He's like one of the fathers of comedic storytelling in the Caribbean. So my dad had a few vinyls, and then eventually you get like a Eddie Murphy CD here, a Martin Lawrence DVD there. My dad had the Kings of Comedy collection, so I'd watch them. But like I didn't know that you could just do it. Just go do comedy. Where I'm from, like, you don't just get on stage. There's no open mics, really. Like, you have to be in the theater guild and become a comedian. And then you start getting roles. Whereas here in Toronto, what had happened was I moved to a new neighborhood. I had a job. I was just working retail. And I went jogging one night. And I got lost. And I stopped to ask a guy for directions. And behind him, I could see in the window that somebody was on stage just talking. And I was like, what are you having? You're like an MLM meeting in there or something like that? I was just, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's open mic comedy. Come back next week and I'll put you up. And I was like, okay. And I just haven't stopped doing it since.
Oh, true. And even like with the whole like inspiration, everything like that, like what inspired you to be like a comedian and like do like stand up, like in a sense and all that?
I mean, I do like jokes. I feel like I'm my own natural type of storyteller, whatnot. People tell me they like my voice, and I'm always like, "So I'm ugly?" Is that what you're saying? But part of what it is like for that first open mic session that I went to, that first open mic, I just wrote down some funny stories that I had been telling forever. You talk to people at a party, and I'm like, "All right, this is a funny story. I'm gonna write it out," and most of them were not funny, but I was able to like format one of them where it's like, all right, people can understand that this is a joke. And I'm like, okay, I could probably do this. I know I had done music for a long time. I was in a punk band. I was in a jazz band. I did some classical music. And between songs, we would always just shoot the shit, have some banter. So it's like, I know how to do this already. This is actually the easy part of what I used to do. And now it turns out it's the much harder part because there's a lot more work that goes into, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean, because I know even with just like even being in that process and just like even doing what you have to do, it's like it takes time to like kind of grow your finger too. Like with me, like with podcasting and like media stuff and all that too, like I didn't really have like a crazy interest to even do the whole podcasting thing until like 2021, because I did the interviews, I did the photography, videography, all that type of stuff too, and then it just kind of manifested into like what would happen. Like I think COVID was like kind of like the breaking point, like for me at one point.
COVID definitely brought a lot of people out of their shell in terms of their art. Yeah, I have a few friends who like COVID was like a come up for a lot of people. For one, in that there was no work to be done. There was no, the government was paying you to stay home. We all had this like great reset on what your life is supposed to be during COVID. Even me, I moved 8 times in the year and a half that the pandemic was, and that like put me on this like path to what is happening right now, whether for better or for worse. It just is a change. Yeah. So yeah, I'm glad you found something, at least, because there are a few people who didn't find anything in all that time.
Yeah. Just like kind of like finding the sauce and all that, just like knowing what you need to do. But even like the whole moving 8 times, like when you got that call from corporate saying you have to go back to the office and you're like in a faraway location, like how did you feel about that?
Weirdly enough, I was not working in corporate during the pandemic. The pandemic technically was also a come up for me. Cause yeah, I managed to move. I managed to save a lot of money. I did a lot of video content. I got in some commercials type stuff. So I was able to like upgrade a little bit. Now I live alone. I don't have to move constantly because of nonsense. Right now, my day job is I work in some corporate. Luckily, I'm still at home for the time being.
Yeah.
As is right now, they're like, "Oh, you can come to the office." I'm like, "For what?" what do you want? You want to see me? Like, because recently, I don't even care. My manager's gonna see this. Recently, I went to the office for a meeting and then sat on Zoom in the meeting. What are we doing here? What are we doing here? And you know what? COVID should come back. No, don't don't quote me on that one.
Yeah, because I've heard like stories where people were like in faraway locations like Barrie, or like they moved all the way to like the outskirts of town and all that, and like you're getting that call, hey, can you come back to the office in a bit too, like back in downtown? And then and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Some people move because it was just more especially if you have a family or something. Like the housing market's crazy. There's no such thing as like a 3-bedroom apartment anymore. Really, not that's available. So I'm gonna like live at home, have an office, have a kid. Yeah, I'm moving to Cochrane, Ontario. You know, you're gonna catch me in what's the name of that place? Stouffville.
Yeah,
you know?
Or like Almer or something like that.
Almer, yeah. Like some place with one street, Dunsville. You guys know
pretty much. Like I remember I was like seeing this like TikTok, and like I think for a 1-bedroom apartment like in Windsor it's like 1,800, whereas like if you're moving here it's like for like 3.5 bands and all that.
Yeah, if you want to buy something. Like even I went up to do some shows in Thunder Bay, and I was like, okay, how much is it for a 1-bedroom here? And they're like, yeah, it's 1,500. Like that's Toronto prices. You can't be asking for Toronto prices and you have no CN Tower. Give me some culture. You know what I mean? There's no Amapiano parties here. You can't ask for $1,500. No.
Yeah. I mean, the most you're gonna get is like maybe like country night or like, you know, reggae night, and they're just playing like maybe some Bob Marley, some 100%. UB40, something like that.
So somebody found like a Vibes Cartel cassette, and they're putting that on.
Yeah. Nah, man. And I mean, as far as like influences, like with comedy, who would you say like would be like your influences and all that?
One of my greatest guys that I love, and people don't really know this dude, Brian Regan. Actually, is one of my favorite comics. He's kind of old school. He's clean comic. But he's very physical. A lot of facial comedy. You know what I mean? Like, and even from that time, like obviously, you know, Carlin and Pryor. When I first started, I was really on Hannibal Buress. He was one of my favorite like smart type guys. These days, you know, Schultz, one of the kings. I really appreciate all the jokes that Jay Jordan, he's a New York comic, very, very funny dude. I recently discovered and saw live Sammy Obeid, and he's taken a pretty big leap in his career forward, and I want to say the last year, so, you know, happy for him. And I like the way that these guys write and perform. So yeah.
Like I was like, as far as like for me too, just like what I like kind of like listen to. I mean, Bernie Mac's like pretty dope too. Like rest in peace. Like Cedric the Entertainer has like his moments and all that.
Yeah,
Martin, like all that type of stuff too. Monique still the goat like in a way and all that. I was like watching one of her things like her Shaq, I think All-Star thing where like Shaq hosted. It was like Monique, Michael Blackson, I think Corey Holcomb. I think Corey was like asked like that time and all that, but like Monique and I think Michael Blackson like did their thing and all that, and I think Paul Mooney did his thing as well too, like because that was like kind of like a surprise guest.
Mooney's one of the goats for sure. Yeah.
And I mean Eliza Schlesinger and all that too. She's pretty dope. So
yeah, I don't see her much very more. Her and I guess Taylor Tomlinson, like they're the same type of comedy but different type of person. Taylor Tomlinson's new special was amazing. I really liked, you know, the angles that she took on certain things. So that is definitely in the wheelhouse. I really enjoyed his first Netflix special was in 2021. David A. Arnold, who kind of had like a Martin Lawrence type style. And he'd been doing this for like 25 years and then tragically had like a heart attack like only like a year after his first Netflix special. But like I watched it, I was like, oh shit, this guy is lit, you know. And then you have classics like people who you don't even bother to mention. They're so big, like Gabriel Iglesias, you know, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart is still one of the biggest comics of all time. Whether or not you like him, we won't get into that. You know, he is his own influence at this point. A few people who are on their way up that I enjoy: Ali Siddiqui, Very, very funny dude. Has like a very impactful story. Stavros Halkias, weird, off the wall type of comedy, and Kyle Kinane, very. He's kind of crazy, but he makes sense in everything that he says.
Yeah, I know one show that I watch, which is like Big Mouth and all that too. Like they have like some comedians like there.
Yeah.
Nick Kroll, who's like very dope and all that. I think
Carla Mulaney, yeah.
John Mulaney, like pretty dope too. I think Ayo Edebiri, who's like more like an actor too. Like she has like her moments and all that. That Greek guy, I think that's like on there too.
Ooh, Jason Mantzoukas, another wild boar. It's like you don't even need to hear him talk. I just need to see his eyes. I know it's about to be a crazy time.
Yeah, man. But yeah, like a lot of like the best comedians or like the upcoming ones you see are like on Netflix, like TV shows and all that too. I could definitely like agree on that. You know.
Yeah. There's a lot floating around now, more than ever. I would say that's like really accessible, especially like people putting out their special on YouTube, or you could watch a whole. You used to be able to watch a whole special on Instagram, or through TikTok or whatever. So there's a lot of influence. Mostly these days, I watch a lot of local comedy because, like, I'm at my club or any of the other clubs in the city, and you get to see people locally how they're thinking. How they'll turn this type of joke, and that's always interesting to watch.
Yeah, no, that's facts, and to speak more on your process, like what's your process like, when like writing a joke or doing like stand up and all that?
A lot of it comes from either something weird that I've noticed or something that's happened to me, and I'll literally just talk it out with. I'll call one of my comedy buddies and be like, "This is some crazy shit that just happened to me," and then we'll just amp it up between us, and eventually a joke might come out. Sometimes nothing happens for like. I have a joke that I'm sitting on for like 3 years. It's still not funny, and people could say will never be funny, but yeah, over time stuff just kind of like crucibles. I'll take something on stage and like get 1 or 2 new tags for it, or somebody will see your joke and be like, oh, this is the direction I thought you were gonna go, or hey, there's another joke like this from this other comedy, you should check that out. To see, most times to see what you can avoid so that people don't think you stole their joke. So there's a lot of ways that like I'll take to it. Writing is such an arduous process. It's very easy to get lazy, especially if you deem yourself a funny person. You can just be a character and that's going to be funny. There's a lot of comedians who get away with that. One of the most notable of them, Aziz Ansari, he just has a character that's going to be funny. So, I'm not saying that he's not a good writer, but there's times where you can definitely see he's leaning on his character for this to be funny. Kevin Hart as well. Yeah. So, for me, I don't feel like that's what it is. I need to put some work into my writing, and it doesn't always work out, but I have a good time. Yeah.
I feel like 2 people that actually do it kind of well, like Ari Spears. I know like he'll try like different aspect to aspect, like when he tries like certain characters, certain styles and all that. Russell Peters and all that. Like I remembered when he was like testing out the accents too with the Jamaican stuff and like other stuff too. That guy that does like I think the accents as well too, like the JC like impressions and all that, like he's pretty good too and all that.
Aries is probably one of the best. He's the impersonator guy, I think so, right? Aries is one of the best. I remember watching something old from him, I think like mid-90s or whatever, and some of his impressions, there's not even a joke there. It's just you imagining this celebrity in a situation, and that's just funny to see it coming out of his mouth. A lot of impersonators, their skill is the impersonation, and then they can have a little situation behind it, but it's like, if that's a powerful skill to have. Jeff Dunham is, say whatever you want about some of his jokes, is like that ventriloquism is this amazing skill. Should he have had 5 specials behind it? Maybe not. But, that's me talking shit about people who I will probably never,
Yeah. I feel like someone who also does like characters well too, Chris Lilly, who's like an Australian comedian and all that too. He had like these like free series where he would try like different characters, one from like a private school setting, another from like the We Can Be Heroes like type of thing too. And like that's what kind of inspired me to take comedy like a little more seriously, just checking out the content and all that, and like just like knowing how like comedy can play well within like characters and all that too, like because he played like I think a female student, a kid from like Tonga and all that, and I think a drama teacher, and then like with the other series he would play like a prison guard, rapper from like
Yeah.
Atlanta, and like other stuff like that too, and like it's just like knowing how to like blend that in.
And then make it awkward enough to be funny. You're talking about Sacha Baron Cohen's entire career. Like how to not be me, but still be funny. And in fact, for him, I think the character that's most closest to him is his character in Les Mis. He's like a classically trained opera singer. But in Les Mis, I feel like that's the real him, this kind of scumbaggy type guy. His character, my favorite of his characters is in Sweeney Todd. He's the Italian barber who's in London. And he's only on screen for like 5 minutes, but he's like my favorite character in the whole movie.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Facts, man. Have you ever dealt with like hecklers like before and all that, like when doing stand up?
For sure. There's at least one heckler in every. I'm not gonna say every show, but somebody's getting heckled every night. For me, I usually either I talk them. It's like, oh, you have something to share with the class, and then I'll figure out what it is. I don't ever want to be mean. Being mean usually turns the rest of the audience off. They don't really want to listen to you anymore unless that person's being really egregious. Some hecklers, like, there's not really much you can do. You just actually got to kick them out. Which, fact of life, there's some people who don't want to shut up, and it's going to ruin the show. For the most part, I do remember there is what was it? There's one guy who was really trying to get me to say to like be mean to him, and I just turned it around and be like, nah, I'm pretty sure you're a really nice guy. And he's like, oh, you don't know me. You don't know if I'm a terrible person. I'm like, well, you interrupting this comedy show is telling us something. And then he kind of like caught himself, and he went to go order a drink. I don't know if he came back, but it's like, for me, most of the time, I can't do the Steve Hofstetter, we're going to embarrass your entire familial line,
Yeah.
Stavros Halkias has a thing where, he'll pull an entire story out of somebody, and then that's the set. I would love to be able to do that. Maybe, maybe in the future.
Yeah, because I know with like heckling and all that too, like there's like others that kind of like flow it like pretty well too, to make sure the show's like engaging and all that too, and then there's others that pull like an Amy Schumer, and then it kind of becomes like cringy at the point and all that.
Yeah, really don't want that. Really don't want like a Michael Richards moment, just trying to make sure that, like, because I came with material. Sure, I'll talk to you for a little bit, but even if I ask you a question, there's a lot of comics will ask you some sort of question. I don't really care what you say. I already have something prepped that I'm going to say regardless of what you say. Oh, yeah, you got married in the Bahamas. Okay, that's great. So wet farts are going to be, like, I'm not really listening to what you said.
Yeah, nah, that's facts, man. I think that is like kind of like the epitome to like keeping it like very far and all that, and like to kind of like go like a long way too, because like people who tend to flow like very well with like heckling and all that, like they tend to have like successful careers as others who may not go as like far as like being triggered and everything like that.
Well, it's partly because of like the virality of a heckle clip, right? I'm gonna blame Hofstetter actually for this, of like, he's kind of the guy who started the comedian destroys heckler, and then he started like trying to get that energy from all of his shows, and then he was posting all that, but that's not material. He's not really writing that, and a lot of people are just posting their crowd work clips instead of their written material. Because you can have infinite crowd work, right? Anything can happen, but you have finite material for the most part, right? Like, everybody has their set 7, set 10, set half hour, and you can only post those jokes every so often. So if you were able to push out like a viral clip every week of some nonsense that happened at your show, that's going to help you, if you have that skill. I don't really encourage it at my shows. A lot of the shows I'm hosting, so I don't really want to encourage people yelling shit out during the show. I want my comedians to be able to just do their set. A lot of people, I wrote this material to come here and tell it to you. I didn't write all this material to come here and talk to you about your day. So there's different levels. Like Maria Bamford, I think one of the best writers out there of like strange material, but like nobody's heckling her.
Yeah.
because you
that's
don't.
facts. I know what you mean. And you know, for me, as like someone who's not really crazy about like comedy, like in terms of like going to like events and all that, because I'm kind of like green, like when it comes to like checking out like live comedy and all that. I've probably like seen some stuff like here and there, like at my like past life. But like for me, like I do want to get to know more about the comedian scene, like in Toronto, aside from like JFL and like the other stuff too. So, like in your opinion, how do you feel about like the Toronto Canadian like comedy scene, and do you ever feel like that there should be some changes on how it should improve and all that?
Well, first of all, Toronto is one of the best comedy cities in the world, I think, like in terms of like the amount that is able to go see for cheap, the amount of performing you can do and learning you can do for cheap, the amount of opportunities that you have to like technically leave but not really leave. Like leaving Canada is hard, but in terms of like if there should be changes, of course there's always room for improvement. You know, with we've got a few comedy dynasties here that move in the way that they move. You know, they've made their choices, and then everyone else has to kind of like figure their own path around that. That's, I feel, totally fair. The big injustice I think is that Canadians were kind of stuck. There's not really a huge industry here to support all of us, or even for people to get like properly big, you have to leave. And that's really hard to do because to get a performance visa to go to the States or anything like that, that's pretty hard. You have to reach an echelon to even be able to leave properly. So it turns into this, like, there are a lot of people here who are pro level and they're still fighting for the scraps with people who just started.
Yeah.
So, you know, there are people who have done JFL multiple times that are still at the same bar show as people who are getting paid $20 to do, or a drink ticket or something like that. So it's like the levels of whether or not you can make a living, it's a very flat diagram here. The changes that should be, I feel like there should be more industry, but we have a problem with big industry when it comes to entertainment. So
Yeah. Do you ever feel like there's a kind of like an issue with perception, like when it comes to Toronto comedy? Because there's like the TikTok social media comedy with the Long Tendo, the Snow Days, the Plushes, and then the whole like, you know, with the whole Toronto stand up stuff with you, with Marlon, with like other people as well too, and all that. Do you ever feel like that there is like kind of like a difference within like, or like an issue within perception?
Um, first of all, putting me and Marlon in the same sentence is crazy. He's been up there, you know. I feel like what can happen. There are a lot of people who are working really hard to like get their content out there, and then like being in a particular corner will kind of like, you can create your niche and build out from there. One of my favorite like local success stories, Abbas Wahab, from the Immigrant Podcast, he kind of like coined a type of TikTok video and then took that forever. He like just repeated the format. He created a formula for himself and then built on that, which is amazing. That's what you should be trying to do. When it comes to like gigantic American streamers, like, you know, everybody talks about like Speed and Kai Cenat, these types of guys, they're doing something else. They're like, for me, there's a level between being a comedian, as in I want to be on stage and I want to be on camera, and then monetizing your life, which is what I feel guys like Speed and Cenat are doing. I don't think I'd want to be that in that way. I don't want to be that famous ever. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to need an entourage to go somewhere and feel safe. So, you know, when it comes to like what Toronto is doing to, Toronto itself is not doing anything to like create those opportunities. We're pretty much all doing it ourselves.
Nah, I definitely get it too, because I know some people try to emulate the Toronto Hoodman stuff and all that with the voice, with Wagwan Delilah, and then there's others that kind of try to like play it off with
Judge Tycho and those guys. I mean, I love those guys, you know, and like, yeah, everybody has their Toronto man's bit, you know, where it's like, yeah, this language is not a real language, blah, blah, blah. Sure. And that's probably one of the big things that Toronto is known for outside of here. Like, yeah, I went to England and people are like, yo, man, this is Marv Day. I'm like, no, I'm actually hungry. I'm actually just hungry.
I know what you mean. And I mean, one big thing was like GFL 2024, like, and usually they have it like every other year in Montreal and Toronto, and now it's like kind of canceled. So how do you kind of like react to it?
When the news first came out that they were canceling it, it was kind of like a lot of people are really sad because it creates a lot of like work for people. Obviously, like there's the comedians, but then there's also all the volunteers, all the people who work in all these venues, all the people who deal with all the logistics and everything like that. Those are all, whatever level of jobs or volunteering or whatever. Um, in terms of like me just getting into JFL last year, like I was a little pissed because I was like, oh, this was going to be my year to showcase again. And now it just doesn't exist. Apparently, they've been bought by another company, which will be reviving the brand. But like, this guy doesn't seem to have a lot of track record of dealing with like the same scale that JFL has.
Yeah.
But I'm glad for them to bring something back. Once again, yeah, room for improvement if they would listen to artists. But when it becomes show business, artists tend to have to defer to the man with whoever has the money and do whatever they want. But whether or not it's gonna be a good time, bad time, I'm hoping it's a good time. I'm here for a good time.
Yeah, because I remember like when JFO was at their peak, they had like an actual like show where they would do like little like skits and all that, like all over like Montreal, all over Toronto.
Yeah, the
And then I
gags.
think and then like it kind of like died down for a bit too, and then I mean Comedy Central, like CTV comedy and all that, like that was like a very big peak. Now it's like Big Bang Theory like every 3, 5, 6
Ugh.
hours.
Tired of Big Bang Theory. Never want to see Young Sheldon. I'm also tired of Corner Gas. I hate Trailer Park Boys. I'm sorry, guys. Letterkenny's funny, but only to a point. Like, it feels like there is a type of comedy that the core broadcast viewer wants,
Yeah.
and that is all that the broadcasters are willing to pay for. We had Kim's Convenience, very great, for 4 seasons, and then it gets cut off midway. Then there's the spin-offs from that, like Run the Burbs just wrapped up their finale. I enjoyed the show. Whether it's the greatest show in the world, not gonna say that, but I feel like it was a step in the right direction for like Canadian media. And every couple of years, we kind of just see that we're getting this like stuff that's repackaged almost. Yeah.
No, and like I remember they used to have like the whole like comedy like specials and all that too with the stand up and everything like that with CTV comedy and all that, and like that was like kind of like pretty good, and then that
Yeah,
kind
where'd those go?
yeah
Yeah, Crave did a few things. I know CBC put out their new wave of stand-up, but it's like a lot of it's in the back rooms. Only comedians really know what these things mean, and especially here in Canada, like everybody knows JFL, like the biggest comedy festival in the world, but there are other festivals that like, we have Grindstone, we've got Winnipeg, we got Halifax, that are huge festivals. But once you leave Canada, nobody cares.
yeah
Nobody, if they don't know, they don't give a shit. JFL barely matters. It's what will get you in the door. But like Winnipeg, which I think is one of the more prestigious festivals because it's kind of harder to get into. They've got like a certain thing that they're looking for. That is like, if you don't have that, like in Canada, you're kind of done. But like once you leave, nobody cares that you did that.
pretty much too. And to kind of end off with the whole like GFL thing and like the whole Toronto stuff, like I know recently there was like the Trump assassination like over the weekend. Like I want to like play like the clip for a bit too so that people can check it out. But I don't know if you like saw like the clip by any chance.
I saw snippets of this on Instagram. He dived. He dived like there was an underage girl under there. That was crazy.
Or like they were trying to do like the raid and all that for the documents,
but there's people running around with this is anyway. There's so much speculation on whether or not this is staged or not.
Do you ever feel like it might be staged like in a way too? Just
100%. I felt like the whole Chris Rock Will Smith thing was staged. Like a lot of it, like Hollywood is leaking. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then all the news coming out about the guy who did it is like a card-carrying Republican. Like he had that face. Like he's not like it didn't seem super genuine to me, but this felt like a political stunt that Biden couldn't do.
Yeah.
And Trump knew he could, and he's already proven that he's gonna do whatever he can. You know, the fact that he comes back up with no tie, you know, all
And then raising this like
yeah,
fist
doing
with
this
like
whole
the bloody ear and all that, like that's
yeah,
like a
just
wicked
why? What are they doing? Not getting him off the thing, and then he has time enough to come
trying
on,
to do like the
come on.
Jesse like Owens type thing.
This is a ninth grade production of Hamlet right now. I'm surprised somebody doesn't have a tree falling in the background. Like it doesn't really make sense. That they didn't have a better protocol for protecting him.
Like one of my main questions is like, how did that guy get like on the roof and all that? How did he position himself?
How to do all that?
Yeah,
and a lot of people are saying that because he's not president anymore, there's not like those aren't Secret Service. Those are private contractors, all those mercenaries and whatnot. Sure, but I would say that like because they're not Secret Service, they probably would have been like more vigilant. Because they're not like civil servants, they're privately hired, you know, so they've got to have a little bit more. Yeah, where he was and all that kind of stuff. It doesn't really make any sense that he was in there just in normal. He didn't even dress up like.
Because I know usually like when they're doing like candidate like you know like areas like speeches and all that too, like they'll have like some sort of security, and like that's kind of like
he didn't even have a ghillie suit on, you know, like the whole thing was just very much like. My Jason Bourne bullshit meter is going off at this point, you know. It's like if he really was about it, there's no way he just missed.
Yeah. And like I know CNN and Fox and all these other people, like they're milking content like that for days. Like I remembered like when he was like found guilty for like the whole like court documents in New York and all that with the 34 counts, like they were milking on it for like weeks, you know, talking about the situation. They're talking about the Stormy Daniels like interviews and all that, like how they're having like how she's like speaking with like so many people regarding her testimony and all that stuff. And it's like not a day where you can't hear anything about Trump and all that. No.
34 counts seems intentional. It seems like once again, it feels like the internet's leaking. It feels like somebody was making a call out to Rule 34, which if you don't know, don't look it up. It feels like they were specifically trying to make sure that, we could get as much content fodder out of all this, because people already know that the politics are a shit show. They already know that they're spending way too much money to get this shit done. So why don't I get my money out of this as well? You know, so it feels very much like, the entire like Canada's political run is like less than 2 months. We're not allowed to campaign for that long. I used to work with the federal and provincial elections, and it's like a very strict rule. You know, of course, people are doing like sly mini campaign stuff, but like it's nowhere near the amount of money that gets pumped into the American political system. And I really, really appreciate it I at this point, because I don't think I'd be able to handle American like campaigning plus Canadian campaigning at the same time. You know, and they really make it known that like you're not playing if you don't have money, and then that means that everyone else is like, all right, well, this is just a money train. This is just a show. Like it's not. The policies are not good. None of that matters.
I remember. I think Doug Ford was like kind of like exposed for the whole campaign situation, like when he was like doing like his like last election and all that too, and how he was like overspending and all that, and like there was like nothing really about it too. Like they talked more about the green belt than like anything else. Like not even like with the whole like campaign situation and all that.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, to Canada's credit, I have no idea what happened there. Like I heard about it happening. And then I'm pretty sure, like, I don't know, a new season of Atlanta came out the same day, and I was like, all right, fuck it. Like, I'm not paying attention to that.
Yeah. And I mean, to get back more onto like Ontario and all that, I mean, LCBO, they're still like on strike and all that. So with all the stores like shutting down, so how are you like dealing with it right now?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I don't drink a whole lot. Surprise, coming from a Caribbean background, I don't drink a whole lot anymore. I'm more of like a cider guy, cider and wine. So like, wine rack's still open. That's fine for me. I do have friends who work at LCBO, and seeing what the deal is, especially when it's a government job, like it's complicated because they're asking for a raise that they very much deserve, but you can't really call them profits because it's a government position. So they're running it like a business, but more of like a service business type thing. But we do see exactly what's happening is they're getting shut out so that, more private sales can happen. And that's what the long-term plans seem to be, is that they would open more private sales so that whoever's lobbying in the background, whoever is making more money off of grocery stores selling liquor, Weston, it can just continue to do that. And that it once again, like, we have access to so much media in terms of like both historical stuff and fiction, that whenever I see something like this happen, I'm like, oh yeah, I saw that happen in a thing. I totally believe that this is, some sort of sinister plot, because it's how these organizations move. Does it affect me a whole lot? Not really, but I still have empathy for the people who it does affect.
Yeah.
I'm just,
Yeah. I mean, like, I know in some situations too, they'll hike up the prices too for certain stuff too. So like in Wine Rock, do you ever feel like some of the stuff you're getting is like more expensive because of the strike?
Probably. I'm not wholly doing the math on it. I know, like, once again with the grocery stores, like, I could see that hike happen in real time when it was like $1 more for toilet paper all of a sudden, and this was like after 2020, the 2020 toilet run. For sure, they're trying to just, whenever something like this that's not normal procedure happens, they're just going to throw in a price hike, whether or not it actually affects their bottom line. Yeah. And so if LCBO does come to some agreement and then the strike ends and now we see everything go up 50 cents, what are our citizens going to do about it? We're probably just going to buy more liquor about it.
Yeah. I feel like the worst part is like when it comes to like the upcoming events coming up, like Caravana, that's like kind of like a good year for people to buying like liquor and all that, with like Hennessy, Appleton, like Casamigos, 1800. Like that's like kind of like the moment where everyone has to get liquor. And then
I didn't even think about that, actually. Like, everybody's gonna have to run to like the airport, go to the duty free or something. Like, that'll have to be the move. In like 2 weeks, the whole liquor strike better be resolved, or else there's gonna be hell to pay. Like, everyone can't just drink beer on the road.
Yeah. And I know there's like people like trying to sell like Migos for like the low and all that. Like, not even for the low, like 500, like 600 for like a bottle and all that too. It's gonna be like that for like the next like couple weeks and all that. So
every time I see something like this, I'm always like, it feels like gold rush type shit. Just go west. Go Ciroc. You should have bought a bunch of stuff when it was cheap and then try and sell it after. Like, I know people who are like, yo, my Dial bottle has anything you need. I'm like, how? It's some warehouse over in North York.
I mean, others like go to like MTL or like Winnipeg to just get like booze and all that. So I feel like that might be the more of the norm for like the next like couple weeks and all that until everything gets like solved. So
driving 6 hours. I mean, you could also, I guess, drive down to the States is not really worth it if you got to pay duty and whatnot. But like, drive over to Montreal, buy a bunch of stuff and come back. It's the new rum runners, baby. Yes, it's the 20s. Time for prohibition again. That's where it's just a loop.
Yeah, and like what I've noticed too is like with people that get like their usual stuff like with beer and wine and all that too, like they play it fine than like people who do go with like withdrawals from like Henny, Migos, like all that type of stuff too, because you're not gonna see like white people buying like Hennessy or like Casamigos unless it's like a wedding or if they're like from the trenches and all that too. So
I mean, I don't really know. There's been a few times where like, the classifications of what you drink really come down to like a racial divide. There's one time I was at a restaurant and it's like a fancy restaurant. The guy comes over, he asks everybody, what would you like to drink? Red wine, white wine, blah, blah, blah. Oh, some people is like, oh yeah, Heineken, blah. And then he comes to me and I'm about to tell him that I just want a Sprite, is what I'm about to say. And he cuts me. He's like, sorry, I don't have any Hennessy. I'm like, excuse me, sir? Excuse me. And in that moment, I was like, damn, now I want Hennessy. Now I want to, And I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll take a Sprite. now it looks like I downgraded. Now it looks like I don't drink wine. I don't drink vodka. I don't even drink rum. I only drink Hennessy. Where am I from? Atlanta? Like...
Yeah, I think like that's kind of like the norm. Like when they see like us like at the stores and all that, like, do you have Hennessy? Do you have Migos? Like all that type of stuff too. It's like the go-to for black
Crown Royal, yeah. Or like I don't know. I even like lately, I just been drinking soju. I've become a full K-pop girly. I don't care. I'll drink the peach mango. Like, bring it on. I'm at the point in my life where I want it to taste good. I'm
Yeah.
not doing the Scotch on the rocks, Josh Brolin hard face type shit. No, I'm sorry. I wear sunscreen, so I need my liquor to taste good.
Yeah, decent. Nah, facts. You know, and yo, like to speak more on like food and all that. I wanna like play like this like other clip too, like regarding like curry and all that too, because I know like you're Guyanese and all that. So
Oh my god, yeah.
so let's fast forward. I think to 2.0 or 2 minutes. Yeah, like that. Like it'll. Yeah, yeah. They'll talk about like Guyanese curry and a bit and all that.
I'm just having fun with these subtitles, not understanding what the hell these guys are saying. And this guy kills me every time.
Yeah. Because they'll talk about like the chicken with that, the doubles, and then
It's true though. It's true though, because like Jamaican curry be too aggressive, Trini curry be kind of watery. Yeah, like
they actually use duck and all that.
yeah, nobody else really makes duck curry. Like we have a competition. There's a duck curry competition in Guyana every August, and you go. And it's in the park, in the national park.
Oh, true. You wanna like pause that for a bit?
Like I don't think I've had good Trini curry, and then Jamaican curry. Like I'm not gonna go to a Jamaican restaurant and ask for curry. That's not why I'm there.
Yeah.
If I'm so bored of jerk chicken, like maybe, but like if I want curry, yes, I'm gonna go to a Guyanese restaurant.
True.
I'll probably even go to like a Indian restaurant for curry.
Yo, I honestly want to ask like what makes Guyanese curry the best and all that.
For one, in my opinion, like definitely thicker. It's going to have different spices. What are they? I couldn't tell you. I have no idea. And also, in my opinion, Guyanese roti is the best complement to curry. Also, it's just better. I'm sorry. We have more land than all these islands combined. Why does that matter? Ask your mama. It's just better. It's I can't explain it, but I'm gonna make some. Come to my house. I'll make curry for you.
Because like I know for me too, like you can't really get like Guyanese curry unless like you're in a certain end and all that, or if you're like trying to get certain stuff. Like I know you can get like doubles and like curry chicken and like curry gold like all over the city, but like Guyanese or like you know
gotta know
Grenadian
where you're
food.
going.
Yeah.
You gotta really know where you're going, and like there's a few places that claim to be. It's a place near Lansdowne when I lived there, and it was like this is Guyanese food, and I went in there and they're like, we don't have anything right now. And I'm like, oh, this restaurant is the best. This that means it was only like 6 p.m. You guys are out of food? Yes. I know probably every Guyanese person in the city is coming here. Or you guys don't want to give me the food because you made it and you tasted it and it's so good you don't want to sell it to me. So I don't know. Right now, if I want real like Guyanese style curry, I have to go to Mississauga. I don't even know what the place is called. I just know where it is. Or I like hit up my mom and she'll make something.
Gotcha. Do you ever feel like from the stores it's like more like affordable than like what you're getting from like Jamaican or like Trini spots and all that? Or
Yes, definitely. I mean, if you're in Toronto like downtown, yes, everything's expensive. Like your meal is a minimum $20. Whereas like if you hit Scarborough or you go to Mississauga, yeah, sure. I'm pretty sure I bought 2 sets of curry beef for like $20 with roti and a drink. And it's like, yeah, you're downtown. I went to a jerk chicken place, and just to get like a medium jerk chicken with a drink was $22 or something like that.
I don't know what you mean. Like I know for me too, like I've only had Jamaican like curry chicken and like curry goat too, and for me like goat's like more better than like chicken like in a sense too. But like when it comes to like the whole like classification with Caribbean food, I feel like the oxtail is like kind of like the crack of like Caribbean food and all that too, because it's like you want like more of it too because of the juices and the flavors and all that, and like I'd say like jerk chicken's like, you know, like Reggie weed and all that, like in the sense and all that.
Yeah, oxtail's for sure like a different class because of like how it's made and all that. I like it. I won't say it's like the top of my list. Like if I'm gonna go eat something, like chicken is definitely like what I'm there for. chicken. Barbecue chicken is like my crack. Like that's what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Barbecue chicken with some hot sauce on the side, a little bit of peas and rice, or cook up rice, that sort of thing, or roti. I just have it with roti, whatever. Um, Jerk chicken is the sort of thing like I like it, but once again, it's like I'll have it if somebody's making it, I'll eat it.
Yeah.
When it comes down to like goat definitely is like a better type of meat for you, and I have it. I just can't deal with the bones, man. Make boneless goat curry now. Somebody do the work, no man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got 3 jobs. You ain't got time to take the bone out the curry anyway.
But I feel like with goat, like you do tend to get like more of like that juice, like within that meat. You feel it's like more tender, like in a sense, and all that. So you just have to kind of rip it and like see how it goes. And like I mean, with the sauce, like that curry sauce, like always like hits you like either way too. I
Yeah.
feel like with the chicken, it's like it could be hit or miss sometimes, like depending on the place and all that.
It comes down to, this is the one thing I know. It comes down to the cut of chicken that you use,
Yeah.
right? Because a lot of people, like if you use chicken breasts, that's, you don't care about yourself. You need to use like thighs, drumstick, even like chicken ass. You ever had some chicken ass? Chicken ass is not something that you're gonna get at the restaurant. You have to go to like the family reunion. They serving some chicken ass. You eat the ass out the chicken, right?
Yeah.
Chicken neck, all that kind of stuff. Like
That's
some of
it.
the shit that's like chicken neck, I used to hate when I was a kid, and now it's a delicacy.
Gotcha,
You
true.
get that, and I'm taking that out. And
Yeah.
it's like, it's not the same thing. It depends on like, how this person cooks it. I myself, like if I'm cooking chicken, I buy thighs. I buy wings. Breast is like, oh, I'm cooking for white people.
True. Yo, and as far as like the family like style and all that, like your main family, it's like all black and all that, or like do you have like some like Indo family with you?
Oh, I'm a complete mix. Like my mom's side is like black, Indian, Dutch. My dad's side is like indigenous, black, and some type of Asian, which I have yet to figure out. And so it's like my brother and I came out looking like Chris Brown. People tell me I look like The Weeknd. I'm like, I'm not able. I'm not Ethiopian. So, and in terms of like the food, it just comes down to like whatever we feel like. My sister-in-law is black, but she makes so much curry. My dad is black and indigenous, where it's like they eat a lot of cassava, but he really likes he'll have a lot of seafood,
Yeah.
or like he'll have karayla. You know about karayla? Bitter melon. He'll eat that raw. You ever had that in your mouth?
Nah.
It's one of the most, it's like earwax, I swear to God. And he eats that raw. And I'm like, oh, you struggled. This is, you don't eat that just because you want to. You eat that because somebody forced you at some point.
Yeah, nah, that's facts. And I mean, like, I know, like, in some cases, like, with the cookouts and all that, too, like, is it, like, mainly, like, Domino's and the Pole and all that, or is it, like, a different blend?
Yeah, if you go to like my family reunions, we normally just do some music and some, some kicking around. Like, there'll be a backyard. Somebody will probably play some
True.
cricket, some frisbee and whatnot. If you go to, all the side of my family, the family reunion is going to be, oh, we're all hopping in like a van and we're going to the river. And then we'll spend a day there chilling and like, some dominoes, some cricket, some reggae music into the night, and then somebody's gonna light a fire. You always gotta light a fire. It's not a family reunion if you don't light a nice big fire and endanger the environment. So that, for your family.
No chutney music and all that?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you got some chutney music. I mean, as far as I know, my family's like a really big calypso crowd. Like that's really, they'll do the old school like political calypsos.
Okay.
Well, they're talking about the political climate of like the 70s and 80s. It's like shit I don't even know. I would listen to it as a kid, and then years later listen to it again and be like, oh, that's what you were talking about, communism.
Yeah, that's facts, man. And I mean, just we have like a couple of like these like questions like left for a bit too, but to ask, like, knowing that you're queer and all that too, at what moment did you decide on becoming queer, and like how it changed like everything for you in a sense?
Well, I didn't decide on it. I decided to let people know that's the decision. Really, it turned out to just be like, interacting with a lot of people in my industry. Obviously, you're queer, and like starting to understand their stories, starting to unpack some of the repressions that I myself had, making friends with certain types of people. allow you to be a little bit more free with yourself and, your own types of expression. And that leads to, oh, I have the same lines of thought and I've just been ignoring my own needs for a long time. So it was like 2016 to 2018 was like a lot of like self exploration. Like I was coming off of school, I was really getting into performing, and I was spending a whole lot of time. Like comedy is an exercise in self investigation. So like spending time figuring out why I feel the ways I feel about certain things, and then deciding like, oh, this is okay, instead of, I had like a very Christian upbringing. And it's like, certain things you just lock that away,
Yeah.
and then deciding it's like it's okay for me to be this, accept this side of me, and then that allows me to like do some more unlocking. So yeah.
Like it never, like there was like never like any like sort of like change like in a way because I know in some situations there's like like even with Lil Nas X, like before it's like when people like before like he was like gay and all that, like a lot of people were like jamming to his like music and all that too, like everyone was like having fun with it. And then once he came out, like people like there were like some people that kind of like side-eyed him for a bit too with his like decisions. So
For sure, I feel like he probably finessed it the best. Him and Frank Ocean finessed the entire industry the best in that way. And for Lil Nas, like his first hit is like a low key gay bop that nobody understood what he was
yeah,
doing. And I feel like he could have kept doing that. But, keeping yourself in the dark like that is its own level of torture. And it seems to be that he at least is way more happy in his self-expression of his art,
yeah,
whether or not people side him or not. Like that happens to me. One of my friends like warned me. Like she was saying, it's like, yeah, I know you feel this way, but I feel it's detrimental for your career to come out. And I was like, I listened to her for like a good like almost a year, and then finally like changed my mind, like met some new friends who are like, we are going to be your support system, and I do feel a lot better for it. And then a year later, it turns out that person wasn't really my friend at all. So sometimes the universe will just bring you the answer of whether or not you should do what you should do.
it's just like like that moment, like that like gift of gab like time moment, like you just make that decision either way too and like see how it affects and all the
Yeah, like we all got to deal with whatever types of consequences come for us, and when it comes down to like how that's going to affect your quality of life, like I'm not compromising for nobody, because I see a bunch of people compromising the whole life. Like a lot of the argument people will say is like, oh, back in the day there weren't as many gay or there weren't good non-binary or trans people. Well, yeah, they were. They just didn't come out because they didn't feel safe about it,
just the
So,
environment at the time, timing.
and so now, say what you will, now there's a whole other side of capitalism that is there to serve these people, whether or not that is, problematic in its own way, because of course it is. But now those people feel a little bit more secure in their self-expression, to the point where now they're able to participate in society authentically. And that, for better or for worse, is just what we got to deal with now.
Facts, nah, for sure. And for your mental health, like how do you like deal with it, like in a sense too? And do you feel like with stuff going on, like do you ever feel like it's overwhelming, or would you say it's different?
For sure, for sure. I mean, everybody's overwhelmed all the time, and that's our main problem. For me, it's a lot of like I do some yoga every day. I do a little bit of mindfulness. I try. This is something I do, which it's stupid, but I don't know. It's not even meditation. I do a thing where I get out a watch and I do nothing for 1 minute, 60 seconds. Even if I'm counting those 60 seconds, just do nothing. And it feels like such a long time. It feels like I don't have a minute to waste. And then after you take that minute and you start, I do that a couple times a day, you find how much time you're wasting on other shit. And that 1 minute is actually like worth more than the other 10 minutes of productivity you're gonna put. I'm gonna do it on the train on the way back home. Actually, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like I could definitely agree with that because like just like recently with the past couple of days, like I do like a lot of other work too, and like I try my best to figure out, all right, what can I do within this hour, within the next hour, and see if it works. And like sending like emails and like doing all this like other stuff too, creating posts, like all that type of stuff too, reading, going to the gym. Like I know it's like kind of worthwhile than just like staying like doing something like doing barely anything for like 1 hour and then like Yeah.
It's hard, man. Like, I talk about this all the time where we live in a world where we feel like we're constantly late, especially here in Toronto, constantly late. And that in itself is a piece of torture that we've sort of inflicted on ourselves with the internet. And so, like, I have a friend who has a dumb phone. He doesn't have any apps. He's a flip phone, and there's no way to contact him. And he seems to be doing great. You know what I mean? He seems to be getting a lot more writing done and whatnot. And some of us are like, oh, fuck, I could never do that. You know, for me, I'm like, a lot of money comes in. If I'm not paying attention, I miss out on some of these things. He seems to have it down. Like,
Yeah.
you know, maybe he's like in his 40s. So maybe in 10 years, I'll figure it
Yeah.
out, you know, but I got to give myself time and grace
Yeah.
to adjust to the environment that I was thrown into.
Yeah. And just like knowing the right person too, because I know with some people too, like they have like different mindsets of like how they view life and everything else too. So older people like tend to take like things like very slowly versus us where we're doing like like things like one way at a time. We're multitasking. We could like send an email while doing something on IG.
Yeah.
We could like do all that. So with others, it kind of may be different because like it might take that process to even like do things like one at a time. Like that could be the same for people with like disabilities too, because not they can't do like as many things as they should like in a physical format, but like it's like how to take that time and how to be like efficient with it. And like I could actually congratulate them like more on that too, because when they do it like very efficiently within their own process and timing, like it just works out either way too, even like 10 times better.
Yeah, I mean, it's something we definitely should get better at recognizing in our society is the way that, you know, certain types of disabled people can still definitely contribute, but we don't really let them because of, you know, internalized
Yeah.
ableism, all this kind of things. When it comes to whether or not we should be able to like fully integrate that into our society, the nature of, you know, disabilities is of course more complex than
Yeah.
just not being able to go upstairs or whatnot.
Yeah.
When it comes to our multitasking addiction, um I myself, I have I do this thing called time stacking, which I got out of a book, which is like, if you know, oh, I've got to microwave my dinner, that's gonna take 2 minutes.
Yeah.
What can I do inside of those 2 minutes that I would need to do anyway, and then get back
Yeah.
in time? Because like as a kid, I used to just watch the microwave, and I was like, oh my god, 2 minutes just watching my food feels like a crime.
Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
like, and I feel like my father never had to deal with that type of anxiety. My
Yeah.
father doesn't even care about the Wi-Fi, you know, and he seems to be living an okay life, but he's not on Reddit, so I don't know what his quality of life is like,
Yeah.
either for the better or for the worse.
Yeah,
You
for
know.
sure. Nah, likewise. And you know, it's like last question as well too. Like, what do you have going on next in terms of any events, projects, and so forth? And do you have any like closing remarks you'd like to say? Like, if you want to like shout out your social media, all that type of stuff.
So one thing I do, I work for the only Black and queer owned comedy club in the city, the Comedy Lab, down at 298 Brunswick. That's near Spadina Station. Definitely come check us out. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We do 3 shows a night. The next show, one of my showcases, Heatwave Comedy. That's going to be on the second Friday of the month, August 9th. So if you want to come through, catch some of the best comics in the city doing like their hot showcase set, come see that. Also, we are putting together our own comedy festival, hopefully by the end of the year. So just keep watch on the page for that. As well as I do a variety talent show called Spice Rum, which is comedy. It's going to be a fashion show. It's Vogue. It's freestyle rap. There's poetry. You never really know what's gonna happen. That's why I call it Spice Rum, because it could be literally anything. And the next one of those is gonna be the end of September. And if somebody wants to sponsor us, the last sponsor we had was we have Angry Mike's Hot Sauce. Really good guy, makes a pretty good hot sauce, and he sponsors Spice Rum. So I think the next one I need Kraken to sponsor us. I need an actual spice. No, Captain Morgan. Is Captain Morgan American? Are they
So I have
Caribbean?
to double check. I mean, Appleton's Jamaican, and then Jack Daniels, like that's like a Tennessee.
Something like that. We need an
Yeah.
alcohol sponsor. You can't do comedy without getting drunk, right? So yeah, we can get an alcohol sponsor. Chrysler, you know, just any, you know, we need a car sponsor. Rolex, whatever you want to do.
Wendy's, Popeyes.
Yes, Popeyes for sure. Spicy Popeyes chicken, the blackened chicken sandwich, that can sponsor my show. Let's go.
Okay. All right. And they could follow you at Cliff_is.
Cliffy So Funny,
Cliff
that's
So Funny.
everywhere. You could also just search Clif Knight, Cliff with one F, Knight like round table. You'll find me.
Yeah.
And then that is all the stuff. Also check out Douche Rehab is a online Douche Rehab is a web series I'm putting together with my friend Danton Lamar. It's the story of 4 queer douchebags in the city and their path to redemption to becoming better people. Yeah, it's also funny or whatever. Yeah,
for sure. Cliff, it was dope having you on, man.
Thanks for having
we'll
me,
definitely have you back on to discuss more about stuff like life and all that. And it was a pleasure having your story. And
I want to see both you guys, you and your engineer guys. August 9th comes your Heatwave Comedy.
Yeah, I'll definitely pull up for the 9th. Should we let you know? And this is Josh, also known as Yashu, episode 94 of the TLOY Talks podcast. You can get this on all platforms, as mentioned in the intro: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, much more. We're definitely closing off right now. So this is Josh, also known as Yashu, with Clif Knight signing off.